When I said I wanted to study computer science, my mom told me, "Get real, your brother needs that tuition more than you." So I walked away with $300 and a used laptop. 5 years later, they turned up uninvited, asking for $120,000 to fix the mess your brother made. I just laughed and asked if he still thought I was wasting my time on computers. The moment I realized my family saw me as a backup plan, not a person, was a punch to the gut I'll never forget. But it was only the beginning of a fight I didn't even know I was in. I was 19, sitting at the kitchen table, the air thick with unspoken expectations, ready to share what I thought was good news. My entire world was about to pivot, and I couldn't stop it. My name is Leo. Back then, all I had was a half-dead laptop, some second-hand headphones, and a brain that couldn't stop coding. Since I was 12, I'd been obsessed with how things worked online. I'd taught myself Python from YouTube, built a browser game at 14, even made a budgeting app for my mom at 16. She never used it, but that wasn't the point. I coded because I had to. My parents, David and Sarah, never quite understood. David, my dad, was a welder, a real work kind of guy. Sarah, my mom, came from a family who thought computers were a phase, like frosted tips. They'd say, "You need a real skill," while struggling to print a document. I figured college acceptances would change their minds. Show them I wasn't just a kid tapping keys in the dark. I thought, maybe they'll finally take me seriously. I was so wrong. When I got into 2 solid-state schools for computer science, I ran to them, acceptance letters in hand, a hopeful, dumb grin on my face. I thought they'd be proud. My mom didn't even look up. "That's nice, honey," she said, like I'd just told her I found a coupon. "But have you thought about community college?" My dad just grunted, "Do they teach plumbing, too?" Just in case. But the real blow landed a few weeks later. We were talking tuition. I knew money was tight, but I had scholarships, I'd hustle with a part-time job, campus housing, the works. I just needed them to co-sign a small loan. That's when my mom gave me the look. Head tilted, lips pursed, her voice soft like she was breaking terrible news. "Be realistic, Leo," she said. "Your brother needs that tuition more than you do." I actually laughed. I thought it was a joke. But her face didn't change. Neither did my dad's. They just stared, like I should have known. My brother, Marcus, was 23. He'd dropped out of 2 programs already, business, then hospitality. He spent his days chasing get-rich-quick schemes, sneakers, crypto, drop shipping. Every failure, my parents chalked up as a learning experience. "He's figuring himself out," they'd say. "He just needs a little more support." Apparently, that support was now my future. "So, what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're giving my college fund to him? Even though he's not even in school?" My dad shrugged. "He's your older brother. He's going through a rough patch. You'll find another way. You're the smart one, remember?" That night, I stared at my ceiling, trying to process it. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about what they saw when they looked at me, not ambition, not talent, just a backup plan. A spare. The dependable one who didn't need help because he'd figure it out. The next morning, I packed. My mom cried. My dad offered me $100. "You'll be back when the real world hits you," he said. I didn't take the money. Instead, I withdrew $300 from my summer cafe job, stuffed my cracked laptop into a backpack, and took a 2-hour bus ride to my friend Liam's garage near the city. He let me crash there for a few weeks. It smelled like motor oil and cold pizza, but it felt like freedom. I got a part-time job at a computer repair shop, fixing old motherboards and installing RAM. Nights, I taught myself front-end development. I was exhausted, broke, and eating more ramen than any human should. But I was building something. And nobody could take that from me. I didn't call home. They didn't call me. Every now and then, I'd hear from my cousin, Brooke, that Marcus had a new venture, an online casino flagged for fraud, a wellness brand selling repackaged dollar store vitamins. Each time, I expected a call, some admission they'd picked the wrong horse. Nothing. They doubled down on him. I was the family ghost. 5 years later, I was sitting in the small, clean, quiet apartment I could finally afford, a dual monitor setup glowing in front of me, when there was a knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it. There they were, my parents, David and Sarah, standing awkwardly, holding a Tupperware of homemade lasagna like a peace offering. And behind them, looking sheepish but not quite sorry, was Marcus. That's when I knew. They hadn't seen me in 5 years. No calls, no messages, not even a reaction to my birthday posts. And now, lasagna. I let them in. I probably shouldn't have. The tension was thick. My mom gave a forced smile. You've done well for yourself, Leo. My dad just nodded, muttering about the place looking nice. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. I offered water. We sat. That's when they finally said it. They needed $120,000. Not a typo. Not a joke. Marcus, apparently, had hit another rough spot. Something about an investor, a failed app, a loan with ridiculous interest. Details were fuzzy. Every time I asked for clarification, my mom waved her hand. It's complicated. What was clear, his business had crashed. He was facing lawsuits and debts no one could cover. So, we came to you, my dad said, his tone shifting to that voice he used when I was 12 and left the garage light on. You're in tech now. You're doing great. We figured you could help your brother out of a jam. I didn't respond. I just stared at them. These people who told me to be realistic, who gave up on me without a second thought, who never even asked if I was okay. And now they wanted 6 figures. That's when Marcus finally spoke. What he said was so ridiculous, so shameless, I almost forgot to breathe. That's where everything began to shift. The part of me that had spent 5 years holding on to restraint and forgiveness finally cracked. Marcus didn't even look at me. He picked at the frayed seam of his jeans, like a kid waiting to be scolded. Then, with a sigh so rehearsed it sounded bored, he said, Look, I know I've made mistakes. But I wouldn't be in this situation if I had the same support you got. I blinked. My mouth actually fell open. For a second, I thought I misheard him. The same support? I repeated. He looked up, finally. I'll never forget the expression, a strange blend of self-pity and entitlement, like he truly believed he'd been cheated. Yeah, he said. You got to just go off and do your thing. No pressure, no one breathing down your neck. You had time to find yourself. I never had that. I was always expected to succeed. It messed with my head, man. I let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't funny. It was that disbelieving laughter you can't suppress when someone says something so backwards. You had everything handed to you. I snapped. They paid for your first 2 colleges. They co-signed your car. They covered your rent twice. They paid for that dumb motivational retreat in Nevada, remember that? The one where the life coach said your energy wasn't aligned with your destiny? I was eating instant noodles in a garage while you were sipping coconut water in a hot tub trying to manifest success. Don't talk to me about support. My mom clucked her tongue, that disappointed mom sound, like I was the rude one. Leo, that's not fair. Marcus has had a rough journey. You don't need to throw it in his face. No. I stood up. What's not fair is being told my future didn't matter because he needed my tuition. What's not fair is being treated like a safety net, like the fallback plan for when Marcus messed up again, which, surprise, he did again. Marcus folded his arms. You don't have to be a jerk about it. I turned on him. You think I owe you something after all these years? You think I've just been chilling, living the dream? I was homeless, Marcus. I slept in a garage for 4 months. I worked 12-hour shifts repairing computers for minimum wage just to afford a used Chromebook and internet. I taught myself to code from scratch, built a portfolio from nothing, freelanced for gift cards until I landed my first real gig. You had parents funding your failures while I had to treat mine like death sentences. And now you're here saying you didn't get support? That shut him up, for a moment. My dad stood, trying to diffuse things, the way he always did, gruff tone, hands on hips, playing peacekeeper without picking a side. All right, that's enough. We didn't come here to fight. We just need help. We're family. Family, I repeated. The word felt hollow. Performed. A script he'd used one too many times. Funny. I don't remember being family when I was sleeping in a hoodie because I couldn't afford heat. I don't remember being family when you told me to be realistic and handed my future to Marcus like it was spare change. My mom's voice tightened, more defensive. We were trying to keep the family together. You always acted like you didn't need us. I didn't want to need you, I said quietly. We stood in silence. The air thick with everything unsaid. Then my mom, desperate to shift the mood, placed her hand gently on my arm. Leo, we're not asking for a gift. It's a loan. We know you're doing well now. You have your own business, right? You can spare it. It wasn't the money that broke me. It was the casualness. The assumption that my success existed for them. That everything I'd bled for, every sleepless night, every bitter winter shivering in front of a space heater, was just a resource they could tap into when Marcus dug himself into another hole. That's when I realized they didn't see me as a person. Not really. I was a safety net. A resource. The plan B. And the worst part? They didn't even seem ashamed. I didn't yell. I didn't throw them out. I just stood there and said, "You need to leave." My mom looked wounded, like I'd slapped her. "Leo, no," I said, sharper. "Before I say something I won't take back." My dad muttered ungrateful under his breath. Marcus looked stunned, like this was the first time in his life he'd ever been told no. They left. No hug, no goodbye. Just the click of my front door, then fading footsteps. I stood in the silence, the lasagna untouched. But that wasn't the end. 2 days later, my Aunt Joyce, my mom's sister, called in a panic. She was the only relative who ever checked on me. "Leo," she said, "I need to warn you. Your parents are telling everyone you cut them off for no reason. That you refuse to help your brother in a crisis. People are calling you selfish." My stomach dropped. What? Yeah. Apparently, Marcus told the family you're sitting on millions and refused to loan him a penny. Your mom's crying to everyone about how she raised a cold-hearted son. And now your cousin's talking about setting up a GoFundMe for Marcus. That's when the nausea kicked in. Not just betrayal. A smear campaign. Twisting the story to make me the villain. It was high school all over again, where Marcus crashed my bike and told my parents I'd forgotten to lock it, and I got grounded. Only now, the stakes were higher. My name was being dragged through the mud by people who hadn't spoken to me in years. I thought that was as bad as it would get. I was wrong. A week later, a letter arrived. Not an email, a mailed, stamped, signed letter. It was from a lawyer. My parents were threatening to sue me for emotional damages. I kid you not. Emotional damages. They claimed my refusal to help had caused Marcus such distress he was suffering significant mental anguish and reputational harm. They were seeking restitution for the sake of family unity. It was absurd. But it was also real. I had to hire a lawyer, pay fees, sit through consultations, explaining there was no legal ground. It never made it to court. Their lawyer probably saw how flimsy it was. But the message was clear. This wasn't just desperation anymore. This was war. And that was the moment something in me shifted. Not just anger, not just betrayal. Resolve. If they wanted to treat me like an enemy, they were about to learn how dangerous it was to push someone who'd spent 5 years clawing their way out of the dirt without a single hand offering help. I stopped being afraid. I stopped hoping for an apology. I started looking at everything I'd built, not just the company, but the connections, the influence, the quiet respect I'd earned. I had more power than they ever gave me credit for. That's when the plan began to form. And let me tell you, they had no idea what was coming. I didn't sleep the night the letter came. Not because I was scared of a bogus lawsuit, I wasn't. The legal system wasn't on their side. But it still did something to me. The paper trembled in my hands, even though I wasn't cold. It wasn't fear. It was something deeper, something hollow. A realization that I'd tried so hard to become someone they'd respect, someone they'd see, and all I'd earned was a legal threat. That night, I stared at my ceiling and thought about the kid I used to be. The one cross-legged in the garage, building games where cats chased lasers. The one who believed that if you worked hard enough, you'd earn your family's pride. Turns out, the only thing I earned was a target on my back. The moment I proved I could stand without them, I hit a low I didn't expect. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't cry into my pillow or scream. It was quieter. I stopped answering emails, paused client projects, let my phone die for 2 days. Food didn't taste like anything. The world didn't feel like anything. I wasn't depressed, not exactly. I was just worn out, spiritually threadbare. Like the part of me that used to fight had gone to sleep. My lawyer, Kevin, a solid guy I met at a developer conference, called and left a message. They've got no case. Don't worry. Call me back when you're ready. I didn't call him back for a week. The letter sat on my kitchen counter like a rotten piece of fruit. I couldn't touch it, couldn't throw it away. The worst part wasn't the attack. It was the silence after. I started to wonder if maybe they were right. Had I become cold? Had success hardened me? Was it so wrong to help your own brother when he was drowning? Those thoughts slithered in late at night when the house was too quiet. You'd be amazed how convincing your worst thoughts can sound when no one's there to challenge them. But then I got a text. From Liam. My old friend from the garage days. We used to fix dead laptops and eat kimchi when we were both broke, dreaming of Silicon Valley. He'd made it too, now lead architect at a cybersecurity startup. We hadn't talked in months, but out of the blue, he messaged, "Hey, saw your latest app launch. Freaking brilliant, man. Proud of you." I stared at the text. It wasn't a big thing, just one sentence, but it snapped something back into place. He knew. He knew where I came from, what it took. That I wasn't some cold-hearted tech bro. I was the kid who rewired old routers for rent money. The guy who built an entire back-end system from scratch just to prove he could. That reminder lit a fuse. I plugged in my phone. I called Kevin. "I'm good," I told him. "Thanks for holding the line. Let's shut this down clean." He sounded relieved. "They've already gone quiet," he said. "I think they realized they were outmatched." "Let them stay quiet," I said. But I wasn't done. Once the legal dust settled, I got to work. Not out of spite, not yet, but out of necessity. I needed to rebuild what they'd shaken, not just my business, but my mindset. I started with the basics, cleaned my apartment, sorted overdue messages, replied to clients. One of them, an AI startup in Nashville, had been waiting on a dashboard tool. I emailed, apologized, and said I'd understand if they moved on. They didn't. Their CTO responded, "We'll wait. You're worth it." Another ember lit. For the first time in weeks, I sat at my desk with purpose. Opened VS Code, adjusted my monitor, cracked my knuckles. I pushed the lawsuit out of my mind and dove into the code like it was a lifeline. For days later, the dashboard was done, better than I expected. The CTO called. "Best UX we've ever had. If you're open to it, we want to bring you on for something bigger. Equity level." Just like that, I was back. But it wasn't about money anymore. I had enough. What I needed was to reclaim something, my voice, my direction, my self-worth. So I did something I'd never done. I started writing. Not code. Words. I opened a blank document and journaled everything. Not for a blog, not for social media, just for me. The garage days, the cheap ramen, the nights I fell asleep watching Stack Overflow tutorials, the times I almost gave up. I wrote about how my mom used to say computers don't pay the bills, and how Marcus mocked my projects as nerd stuff. The writing wasn't perfect. But it was true. It reminded me my story wasn't something to be ashamed of. It was fuel. Proof I'd built something from nothing. Then, something strange happened. One of the startups I worked with, a mental health platform, asked if I'd write a guest post about resilience in tech. I said no. At first. I was a builder, not a writer. But then I thought about what Liam had said. Proud. So I said yes. I wrote about the garage, being told I was wasting my time, the $300, the cracked laptop, teaching myself code by moonlight and desperation. I didn't name my family, but I didn't protect them either. I told the truth. The post went live. It exploded. Thousands of views. Comments from young developers who saw themselves in my story. Emails from people saying, "I thought I was alone." One message from a girl in Montana, living in her car, learning to code on a cracked phone. "Your story made me believe I can make it, too." Thank you. I sat with that for a long time. That was the moment I realized I didn't need my parents' approval. I had something better, impact. My story mattered to people who actually cared, who listened, who saw me. That was the rise. No confetti. No champagne. Just peace. But the fall? That wasn't over. As I rebuilt, a storm cloud hung in the air. My parents had gone quiet. Silence wasn't safety. It was just the sound of something brewing. I was finally ready. When the storm came, I wouldn't run. I'd stand in the center. And when it passed, there'd be nothing left of the old story. Only the truth. Only me. The setup for that, the plan I put in motion after, that's what changed everything. It started with an email. Not threatening. Just, "Hey, Leo. Long time no talk. Heard you're doing great things. Love to reconnect. Maybe grab coffee." Signed, Brooke, with a smiley face. Brooke was my cousin. Marcus's favorite. The one who told me to lighten up when Marcus insulted me. The one who laughed when he changed my laptop password the night before my college entrance interview. I hadn't spoken to her in almost 6 years. I stared at the email, then closed my laptop. Something was moving. The timing was too perfect. The lawsuit had fizzled. The blog post went viral. My work doubled. I'd just been invited to speak on a tech panel. For the first time, I had leverage, status, network, money, a story people cared about. Why was Brooke reaching out? I didn't respond. Instead, I mapped things out. A timeline of everything: the betrayal, the garage, the rebuild, the lawsuit, and now this. The same people who threw me away were circling back. Why? Because the story had flipped. I wasn't the dropout tech nerd with a pipe dream. I was a founder, a builder, a name. Visible. And in their world, visibility meant opportunity. Money. That's when I decided I wasn't just going to move on. I was going to move through. Not out of anger, not even for justice. For clarity. For every kid who'd been the backup plan. For every sibling sacrificed at the altar of the golden child. For me. I was going to show them what they threw away. And make sure they couldn't rewrite the story this time. First, I said yes to the tech panel. 4 months away. Enough time to build something big. Something that would land with enough force to make waves. So, I reopened the project I'd shelved 2 years ago, DevNet. A platform for freelance developers, by freelancers. No fluff. Just raw tools, secure contracts, payment protection, a community not fueled by fake clout. I'd sketched it during a rough patch, but shelved it. Now, with stable income and support, it was time. I reached out to Liam first. Remember DevNet? I texted. It's time. He replied, you serious? Count me in. Then Maya, a UI/UX designer. You're building it for the people who never get the spotlight, she said. Let's do it. Within 2 weeks, we had a remote team of 5, me, Liam, Maya, a backend genius from Accra named Jamal, and a QA tester named Priya from a Reddit thread. We didn't sleep much. The momentum was real. But I didn't just want to build a product. I wanted to tell a story. My story. So, in parallel, I started documenting the process, from the garage, a video series showing DevNet built from scratch by 5 overlooked people. No drama. Just real people solving real problems. The first episode got 10,000 views. The second, 40,000. Someone on LinkedIn shared it, this is what tech used to be. Builders building. Comments flooded in. I still hadn't named my family, but I knew they were watching. Brooke emailed again. More direct. Your parents saw your video. They've been asking about you. Marcus said he's willing to apologize. Maybe we can all get dinner. Apologize. Marcus, the guy who tried to sue me for emotional damages? Who told half the family I was hoarding millions? I didn't respond. But I started preparing. Because what Brooke didn't know, what none of them knew, was I'd been gathering information. I reached out to Aunt Joyce again. She'd always been the one. I asked if she'd heard more about Marcus's situation. She had. The $120,000 mess was far bigger. Not just debt. Marcus had defrauded an investor. Pitched a fake crypto coin, NeoCoinX, got funding under false pretenses. He was being investigated. He'd used our parents' house as collateral for a private loan to cover losses without telling them. The bank was circling. That's why they wanted dinner. Peace. Not because they missed me. Because they needed me. So, I gave them what they wanted. I agreed to meet. Dinner at a mid-range Italian place near their suburb. Neutral. Public. I wore a simple dark button-up and jeans. Clean. Confident. Unflashy. Let them see success without the show. I arrived on time. They were already there. My mom stood and hugged me like we hadn't spent 5 years pretending the other didn't exist. My dad nodded like old poker buddies. Marcus gave me the half smile you give someone when you owe them everything but can't admit it. I didn't hug back. I just sat. Small talk. Mom asked if I was still doing computers. Dad asked if my car had a Tesla dashboard. Marcus avoided eye contact until the drinks arrived. Then, finally, he said it. I messed up. I stayed quiet. I just thought I could build something fast, he continued. You made it look easy. I thought if I just pushed hard enough, something would land. You stole, I said flatly. You lied. He flinched. I know, and I'm sorry. My mom reached for my hand. We didn't know everything until recently. He kept us in the dark. We thought maybe if you were willing to help. And there it was. The ask. I didn't respond. I just sipped my water, then reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a small white envelope. My mom's eyes widened. What's that? I slid it across the table. Marcus opened it. Inside, a single piece of paper, a screenshot of the From the Garage video thumbnail with the caption, "We don't save those who threw us away. We build without them." Below it, in bold letters, "I already helped, just not you." They didn't get it at first. Then Marcus looked up, jaw tight. You think you're better than us now? No, I said. I know I am. My mom's eyes welled up. My dad muttered something about pride. Marcus stood, dropping the envelope like it burned him. This isn't over. But it was. They just didn't know it yet. Because I had one last move. That was the real checkmate. They say revenge is best served cold. But I didn't want it cold. I wanted it calculated, surgical. Not to destroy them, but to show them, without a doubt, what they lost when they pushed me away. When they bet everything on Marcus and treated me like the backup plan. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to humiliate them publicly. I just needed to press the right pressure points. And so, I began with the one thing they always underestimated, information. After that awkward dinner, I went home, logged into my private research folder, and opened what I'd been quietly building for weeks. A collection of receipts, not literal ones, digital ones. Screenshots, emails, public records. It started with Marcus's fake crypto project, NeoCoinX. A flashy, buzzword-laced site he'd thrown together with a Wix template, full of hype but no white paper or tech documentation. The kind of scam you could smell from 2 clicks away. But he had investors. One major, a mid-tier angel investor from Denver named Stephen Reed, who dropped $80,000 into Marcus's pitch after being shown forged early revenue numbers. I confirmed that via a cached investor deck Marcus had uploaded to a private file-sharing site, accidentally linked on his now-defunct LinkedIn page. Sloppy. Typical. I could have gone to Stephen directly, blown it wide open. But that would have made it personal. I wanted it to feel inevitable. So instead, I used DevNet. At that point, the platform was weeks from launch. Our closed beta had 5,000 users. Our soft launch was scheduled for the same week as the tech panel. And I made sure it would be Marcus's unmaking. Here's how. I released a new blog post as part of our Stories from the Underground launch campaign. Each post featured a real freelance journey. I wrote mine anonymously, under the name Code Phoenix. It was raw, detailed, unfiltered. I laid it all out, how I was denied my college fund because my brother needed it more. How I left home with $300 and a broken laptop. How the same people who dismissed me came crawling back when my success became convenient. And how the golden child, after years of burning every opportunity, had committed fraud and tried to drag me down. I didn't name names. But I linked receipts, public documents, archived web pages, the investor deck, a cached copy of the NeoCoinX site, a screenshot of the GoFundMe Brooks' friend had launched under false pretenses. The post hit 100,000 views in 48 hours. It got shared everywhere. Then came the email from Stephen Reed. Subject: Is this about NeoCoinX? I didn't reply right away. I let it marinate. 3 days before the tech panel, I sent a polite response. Stephen, it is. I can't speak directly for legal reasons, but I recommend reviewing the pitch deck Marcus Nolan sent you and comparing it to the current status of the project. I believe you'll find some inconsistencies worth your attention. Regards, DN. He responded within an hour. Thank you. Legal is on it. I thought that was the end. I didn't expect what happened next. The panel event arrived. Live-streamed, 15K viewers, hosted by a major freelance platform. I was slotted last. Perfect positioning. I gave the speech of my life. I didn't make it about revenge. I made it about value, about overlooked talent, about people building quietly while the loud ones flame out. I spoke about the gig economy, why platforms like DevNet were born because too many builders were crushed by broken systems and promises. I ended with this: sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is being underestimated. Because while they're busy betting on someone louder, you get the space to become someone stronger. And one day, when they come knocking, not out of love, but out of need, you'll realize they never saw you at all. But by then, it won't matter. Because you'll have already built something they can never touch. Standing ovation. By the time I got off stage, my phone was blowing up. Stephen had filed suit. The NeoCoinX investor group released a public statement. Marcus's site was taken down. 2 days later, the real fallout began. My parents' house, the one Marcus used as collateral. It was seized. Apparently, the bank had tried to contact them for months, but Marcus had been intercepting notices. When the official letter hit, it was a grenade. They called. Voicemail after voicemail. My mom crying, my dad yelling. Marcus pleading. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I posted one final blog entry. A goodbye. You can love people and still walk away from them. You can forgive someone and still hold them accountable. I don't hate my family, but I love myself more. And that's why I'm done. I shut down the blog the next day. Let the story rest. DevNet launched to the public a week later. We trended on Launchpad daily. Liam gave me the biggest bear hug. Maya cried. Jamal said, "Told you this would shake the system." Priya baked a cake with "Garage to Glory" written in blue frosting. And me? I moved on. Moved up. Bought a condo, mentored young developers, invested in startups that reminded me of my younger self. I stayed low profile, but my name carried weight. The industry knew me as the builder, the fighter, the guy who turned betrayal into a blueprint. As for my parents, they moved in with Brooke, apparently. Their GoFundMe vanished. No one talks about Marcus anymore. He changed his social media name to EJ Nolan and tried a podcast about entrepreneurship. Never made it past 3 episodes. He DM'd me once, "You really destroyed me, man." I didn't reply. Because I didn't destroy him. He did that himself. All I did was show the world who he really was. And the moment they saw the truth, he crumbled, just like always. The difference was, this time, I wasn't there to clean it up. I wasn't the backup plan anymore. I was the blueprint. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't what you do to them. It's what you build without them. What would you have done?